Welcome everybody to our first attempt at trying something a little different. This, I think, is a great opportunity. I remember when I was teaching horticulture, the day that I learned the most was sitting in a restaurant with the guy from Lake Washington, not Lake Washington. The guy who was teaching, he taught horticulture and he was like seeing one floral every year. And we just sat in a restaurant together and we were sitting there going, well, how do you do this? Or how do you do this? And I think that is our plan for this particular meeting. Now, some of you might be sitting with people you know, and some of you might be sitting with new people. And that's kind of what we want to accomplish, is getting that mixing and mingling going. Because when we talk about how we teach very differently because of our different areas. That's the cool thing about Washington, right? We're in these very funky areas where somebody could be teaching animal science almost in downtown Seattle. And then somebody else could be teaching animal science where there's a ginormous, beef operation right outside the door, or a 3,000 cow dairy farm right next door. And so we've all got different ways that we approach and deal with things. And we've all got different tricks that we can use to make things better, and ways that we can help each other out. So one of the cool things that we are looking at for this particular, hi everybody online, hi, is we want to share. And so I'm gonna start off just to kind of get us rolling. And then you guys hopefully will say, I tried this, or maybe if you're having a hard time with something, how do you do one of the skills? So a couple of years ago, I got the opportunity to review that Cornell Vet Science curriculum. And I was part of the group that went through and did the test run. And I think my very funnest activity of the year is my favorite. So I teach genetics. So I go through and I do single cross Punnett squares and the dihybrid cross Punnett squares. And then once I get done with dihybrid, I do the sex-linked traits and go through that. And then we kind of tweak things a little bit, and we start talking about how it really applies to agriculture. So I do a dihybrid cross with scrapies. And so the kids can see those. And I think I put that one in the Dropbox already for you. And then we do EPDs. And the EPDs kind of blow their minds because it's not something that they've been used to seeing in a science class before. So we go through a couple of different practices with the EPDs. And then to end the unit, we do the cattle auction. So I start out by showing we go through and I start off the auction. I don't know if any of you ever been to the All-American Nugget Show down in Reno with sheep, and they bring the sheep out onto, they've got one of those stages, like where Frank's not hotel, and they bring all the sheep out and line them up, and they play the auctioneer song.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. What are you going to do with you? So they go through and they play the auctioneer song, and all these champion sheep are all lined up, and everybody thinks it's really cool. And then they bring out the sheep one by one. So I have created what I call the Grundy County auction, because you got to use a song, right? And they use EPDs for, I think it's six or eight different bowls. And you have to go through and pick. And all the kids get a loan from the bank. And I range them from $5,000 to $20,000. Kids can choose to go through and combine loans. So they could go through and say, I really want cow, you know, the bull number 4. Hey, do you want to combine money and we can try to buy this thing? But the fun thing about it is in the end, I give them a profit loss on the bull. So they actually are able to go through and see, you know, like this bull earned $550 for the farm based on his improvements. Or this bull brought in $65,000 for the farm because of his improvement. And so it really is kind of fun. And it's one of those times where I get to be stupid, more stupid than normal. You know, so I put on the little pink cowboy hat and I pull out my FFA gavel and go, and I didn't know it this year. It's serious, because I don't know how to auctioneer. So I just babble. And they think it's hilarious. And they all get caught up, you know, we know auction fever, right? So they all are like, and they're all caught up in this, like, I got a bid. And I didn't know this, but the counselors were watching me. They were like standing out in the hallway, just going, what the hell is she doing? And it was great because I had families watching on the Zoom just to see what was going on. Like, your teachers, wow, that's crazy, and that's right. But that was, to me, that was a great way to end it. And I really like that activity. I put the auction in there, and I didn't put the you know, effect of the bull. I'll put that in too, so that you have that. I just picked random bulls off the internet. Those aren't the pictures of those real bulls. I just tried to pick, you know, like one of those big double-muscled, ugly things, and a Brahma and a nice Hereford and a nice Limousin. So I just had fun with it, and it was a really good way to tie it all in together. Other things out there. Yes. That is actually from Cornell. Yeah. Yeah. So you can buy the Cornell vet curriculum. I think it's 150 or 225 bucks. And it's kind of the next advanced one. They've had a couple of them. The first one you can pretty much get just for free online now. But the next update that they did like 2 or 3 years ago, they still have kind of, you know, power over it. And so that is in there. And if you haven't looked at that Cornell curriculum, it's really got, I mean, there's no way I could teach repro and genetics for a year on that curriculum alone. I mean, it's just huge how much stuff there is. There's no way you could fit it all in. But there's some really kind of cool stuff too. And if you looked at any of my interactive notebooks for Vet Sci, almost all of those started with Cornell, and then I kind of tweaked them to fit me a little bit better and do more lab type activities, because I wanted to have more, especially when we were able to come in contact with each other. I tried to have a couple of lab activities in each one.
Did you put one of the interactive notebooks?
I didn't, but I will do that too. Let me write that down.
It was second or third revision?
Cornell update. Cornell preview right here. Vet Science curriculum. Writer's second edition. Second edition. Yeah. Yep. And like I say, a lot of the stuff is in there. Oh, another thing with that, I don't know if you guys know this, but a lot of the case stuff is in the Colorado Ag Ed. So if you go, if you don't have case, right, go to Colorado Ag Ed and look at their animal science curriculum. And I think there's a lot of pick and pulls from that actually that they use to kind of make your life a little bit easier. I don't know how much of it's there, but I know there's some because I've used it before. I used that first and then I got the case and I'm like, oh, I've been doing this. Yeah, yeah, yep. Okay. Anybody else want to take the lead? I'm tired of talking.
I wanted to talk about last year that really helped my kids. So kind of when we get close to that winter break holiday, kids get a little antsy. We have spirit weeks and things like that. And I wanted something hands-on that would help them prepare. And so we chose the 12 parasites of Christmas. And so their job was they had to choose 12 of their favorite parasites. And they had to write about what its name was, you know, symptomatic and treatment. And then along with it, they needed to create some type of 3D image of that parasite with paper. And it was I thought it's either going to fly or flop. And for a lot of kids, they really got into this. And I brought examples, and I'm happy to share them with Amy so she can put them on there. And they strung them with ribbon. And then they were like, they kind of got the 12 parasites, and you could use any holiday. It doesn't have to be Christmas. But then somebody else was like, oh, I want to do the 10 cows of Christmas, and I want to do that. And it just turned into kind of this really gross, because parasites, but also this really pretty garland of parasites. And they were just so weird that we decided to just kind of hang them around school for decorating, because we do door decorating, and our principal still has one in his office because it was just like the weirdest and creepiest thing. And I give kids a really fun and artistic way to do something at a time when oftentimes they're distracted or wanting to do other things, but it gave them an opportunity to practice their parasite identification and understand that. And there's also, it's like, you have to take it home and share it with your family. They're like, ooh, yuck. But they were all very excited when theirs was done. So I'll bring some examples down later. I could drape the table here, and we'll put some online for everybody. So I'm going to pass it off to this table, Tony Toretta's table. Who's going to share from that table? No pressure.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. No, but tell us about it.
We did March Mammal Madness this year, which is put on by a whole bunch of very smart and fun university folks, as well as some high school and elementary teachers. And March Mammal Madness, very similar to basketball March Madness, kids have a full bracket of a whole bunch of different animals. They do several themes every year. What I did in my class is when we made the transition back to in-person learning in March, which was crazy for all of my students, March Mammal Madness was a way to kind of get them comfortable and get them back in the classroom. So each of them picked an animal. They did a profile on that animal, talking about where it comes from, what it eats, where does it live, what are its strengths and weaknesses, you know, so when it's going head to head with all the other animals in March Mammal Madness, what sort of advantages does it have? Where does it live? And they do full videos several times a week detailing what animals are fighting and what happens and in what environments are they fighting in and what kind of impacts does that have. I mean, it's really interesting. It's definitely a way to get kids engaged on a classroom level. It was definitely a really good bonding activity. As far as high academic rigor, I definitely think you could build in some extension activities with it, but just for something to get kids engaged, have something fun to look forward to every morning to start up. I loved March Mammal Madness. If you aren't already doing it, I suggest looking into it. It was very fun for my class.
Stick, and the volleyball is your pig, and you have to show it in the classroom, and groups of like 6 at a time, and then you have like somebody judge it, and you can have somebody who's showed pigs before judge it. But it is really funny because you have kids just all of a sudden, they're your shy kids, they turn it on, and you're like, here's your element, like showing pigs. So and it just kind of hits home on how to do it a little bit instead of just talking about it. Doggy daycare is a hit. We team up with the Alternative Humane Society, and we bring in dogs the first 2 weeks, and we do it during a raising young animals unit, so it works perfect. So they're on the computers, but then they can take some time and rotate in. It's about a third of my classroom now, and then they can take the dogs for walks. We did learn, though, they do love taking the dogs for walks. The dogs need to actually rest, so we actually rotate the rest time too. We do it through the Alternative Humane Society. They're really good about helping out. And then last week they provided us with puppies, which that is like, if you want to recruit for your classes, that you don't have to do anything. You just go, oh, I don't care if you use your phones, because they're just pulling up their phones, and it's on their Snapchat and it's everywhere. And all of a sudden you got, if you do it around the recruitment time, you're going to be pretty full class next year. Yeah. That's all you take care.
Anything? Okay, one thing I do for animal science is I buy every kid in the class a chicken, and we get them from Myers hatcheries, or sometimes we hatch them ourselves, which is a little less predictable. And we build a chicken coop every year and then put them out in the chicken coop. They're only good in the classroom for, like, depending on what breed they are, for under a week. And then they go out into we like make a brooder inside the chicken coop and put them out in the chicken coop. And then we like do our classroom work, and then we go out and take our chickens for a walk, and just sort of build a bunch of lessons around that. But they're just like, it's motivating for them to get their classroom assignments done so they can go out and play with their chickens, and then they take them home at the end. And if they forget to show up and take their chicken, you just like shove some extra chickens in some of the kids' box and then they take them home. Yeah.
About rabbits. Right? Do you guys have rabbits?
Not yet. Yes. So.
Does anybody have small animals at school? I didn't really want to say a lot because I know that most cases don't, but we have a school farm where we had gotten up to 4 goats, Nubians, and Suffolk camp sheep, but we got rid of our 4 goats this year because what we figured out is that the kids love the goats, and I have kids that it honestly was the best thing that ever happened to my program, because at this point I have the district office who will call me and be like, you got to get on the camera right now. I'm like, what is happening? Like, we've got a down goat. Like, what do we got going? No, their babies are frolicking in the field, and it's so cute. Like, maintenance is down there constantly. I have never had more maintenance support in my life, because if they come help me, they get to snuggle the goats. But in terms of our kids and what really sold our admin on it, because our admin was like, yeah, okay, like I inherited a program with sheep, and the kids were like, yeah, whatever, sheep. But we got the goats, and what threw our admin on it is I had kids showing up at school at 6 a.m. to milk the goat before they went to class, and they're like, this kid hasn't shown up to class in 3 years, and you have this kid here at 6 a.m. so that they can milk and show this goat? Seriously? But then in terms of my classes, my animal science and my vet tech kids, depending on what I have, they go through my vet tech for like 3 years for one reason or another, whether it be changing curriculum classes. They needed me. It started with needing me to cover Mr. Jeske's shop classes, and then it just kind of rolls, snap, whatever. But then my animal science picks it up. So they do the shearing, they do the hoof trimming, they do the vaccination, they do the castrating, and they look at me and I'm like, and they're like, I'm really going to do this? Like, I mean, we're going to do this. I'm going to explain it to you, but I'm not touching that. That's your job. And the things that can come out of the kids for that has been really, really good.
I've done rabbits, and on Amazon they have this, I think it's like a ferret cage. It's actually, I mean, for what you get, it's $350, and it has an upper level and a bottom level, and you can close it or make it 2 levels. And so then we bought 2 rabbits already bred. We asked them to breed them, and then they delivered them in class. And then they actually delivered their litters. And the kids, every class, even the classes that weren't in, had to be really quiet. And then they learned like all the lessons around it, preparing for them, because you know you have some time before they're born, and they can't touch them for several days after they're born. And so it gives you time, like they're preparing for being able to hold them and stuff. So they're really motivated to do the lessons. And then we had 2 of them. One had 4 and one had 5. And so it was really easy to send them home with kids. There definitely wasn't too many kids that wanted them. And if there had been, it would have just been like on a first come, first served basis, like as far as I can know, acceptance of the parents. And then those rabbits, so this year was kind of weird, right? So we gave them to a kid who agreed to let us breed them again the next year. And they have like a rabbit, you know, like a big caged in, like full on sit with your rabbits and play with them cage at home. And so this year, instead of bringing them back in to breed them, they have more rabbits than the ones we gave them. So they rotated their rabbits in to get groomed, get their nails clipped. And so we had like a full-on rabbit grooming like business for that was good for a couple of weeks. And
in terms of the there's a company called Woody's Products, and it's in Astoria. They won't deliver them, but they have 3 stacker cages for like less than $200. And so with the trays in the bottom and stuff like that. So if you're planning to do and you need them, they're like a single cage with like 4 space, but then they tower up. So that's what we are moving to as we get along.
Those of you who are coming to the physical exam class on Wednesday, I have one of those in my back room. And I also have like a cat condo, which is a 3-stacker cat cage with holes. So like you could have a couple of cats in there and they roam around, but we do fostering with our local animal shelter, which compared to the dogs is easy. Because, you know, you bring the cats out when you want, and it's not so much a walking thing because each kennel has their own litter box. Usually it's a span of 2 to 4 weeks. And so it just depends on how big they are. They have to be 2 pounds to be castrated. And our local animal shelter sets that guideline, and I have to follow all their medication protocol. I had to be certified as a trainer or a what do they call it? Volunteer thing. And then we just return them when they're done. So the kids have that.
And I follow on that. I've cost my kids up so much for a long time going to Lakewood, and I had to propose this to the school board to get them to allow kittens. So I did a big report on the effects of animals in the classroom, and so I did one for cats and one for dogs. And so my very first year, we couldn't get cats right away, so we got puppies. And I had one of my students go through the foster training at NOAA, and his mom and Dylan and I fostered a whole litter of 9 puppies, and his mom brought 2 puppies in a day. And so we fostered these 2 puppies in, just mom dropped them off at school. And then we just socialized all the puppies and were able to adopt all 9 puppies. And we fostered those puppies for, I think it was a 3-week foster. But having the cats in the classroom is fantastic, and it's way easier than the puppies, but it brings people in. It's really good recruitment, and just what Margaret said, 2 to 4 week commitment. And then if you get the kids to go through the volunteer program, then they can foster at their house. But most of the cats that we get in are from OMAC. They're an OMAC transfer. There's no animal control, and so they have volunteers, and then Noah comes over to OMAC and transfers all these cats back to Skagit County and then puts them out there into foster homes. So we call them OMAC transfer cats. They stay there in their cat condos. Kids take care of the litter boxes and they play with cats and wipe down everything and clean everything out, roll it out the back door, hose everything down when you need to. Really nice.
I have some from our online people. Back to the rabbit people. Could they show the rabbits at a fair or a rabbit show?
Yeah.
Yes.
So whoever's showing them has to take possession of them for the season. So it helps with those parents that are like, you know, I'm kind of okay with this idea, but I'm not really sure that I'm game to like buy a rabbit for my kid. So they take possession before they breed. And so they breed obviously at the school because they use the school bus to breed. So that kid goes and breeds that rabbit. We give it like a week or so where they feed at the school. And then typically they take them home. We also do a land lease with our kids so they can lease our animals at the school so that the parent never has to like, hey mom, I'm bringing home a goat. No, you're not. So we have that program that we fill out paperwork with our kids and our parents, and they agree to feed on a rotation at the school. Usually I have somewhere between 3 and I've had up to 8 kids that are leasing animals from the school and coming in and feeding at the school, and then they show the school's animals. And then we set that to be, that lease is up at the end of our fair, which is right before we're back for teacher days anyways. Typically our kids finish out doing the school chores through the summer, of which I'm really missing right now because that means that I'm doing chores because we have no fair this year. So we let the kids out of this lease, which means that farm chores are on myself and my sister, which stinks. But usually the kids do all the chores. I go and check the farm like once a week during the summer. And then they show and get whatever, and then they can extend that lease through state fair. And most of the time I've had probably 3 kids that followed through and stayed with the just lease at the school, like, hey, we live in a rental, we're not allowed to have animals, but I'm really interested in it. And they'll follow their same animal through until they're done. I do the same thing.
I can answer some specific questions about rabbits.
And rabbits just are a little small for me, and I don't know what you can do with them really besides have a pet. I guess there's a few people that eat them. But chickens now, so we'll hatch them in class. And then over the last 4 years, I now have 4 chicken coops. We'll keep however many roosters that kids want to show. Like that's one way to get rid of the roosters is they keep them there. And so then they're responsible for them in the summertime. And they get free rent in exchange for taking care of all the hens. So they take care of them all summer, take them to the fair, and then they get profit that way. So it's great for kids who can't have animals at home, whose parents aren't sure about it. They have to come in, I say 2 to 3 times a week, come in, check on your bird. And then we sell the laying hens every spring. So when we get back to school, they start laying, they market, sell the eggs all school year, sell 1-year-old laying hens in like April, and then the new chicks that we hatch in class go outside and just a rotation. So it works pretty well.
A question, like a challenge. What if school says their insurance will not allow animals at school? Anybody have to overcome that or have suggestions?
I've had to overcome that at Kamiakin.
That's a good idea.
Well, we have an entire of my kids a couple years ago that we wanted to do the guidebook program. And my kids said absolutely not. They said even if they're just in my classroom, absolutely not. Nope, nope, nope. So if we do anything to do with dogs, like I personally breed. So if I have a litter of puppies, then my litter of puppies I'll do the stuff and stuff like that. But for my district, that was where they nope, we're not having dogs. And so I think it's kind of just finding what your say yes and no to it, each one's different. And my district has different policies that it has to be. You have to be able to show how it's made into your curriculum.
You know where the pressure is coming from? Is it admin or is it insurance pool or is it... So then you get the departments form, work with your school to show the departments form, like your lawyers, and then there is some in the WAC shows that we're backing up for ag job animals, work with animals, work with their funny stuff there. You're going to be director or anybody might back you up.
Yeah, CT director one, but the rest of them all maybe just see if they can go see other schools around that have it like. And maybe you guys can be director got permission to work that maybe I don't know, but now you like the assistant superintendent now they're the coolest thing. And if you promote the program, it's like this is awesome.
It took me 3 years, and I have plans sitting out the city of Oklahoma finally for a barn. And I was bugging everybody that I could talk to every single time they made those decisions and pushing. And it's way bigger than what I was expecting. So, and hopefully they're supposed to be starting. Plans are being approved. It's supposed to start being built in August. So.
Do you have no approval for anything like that? You own a rabbit. Do you bring your rabbits in for a unit? No. I had permission last year before COVID hit to bring in some chickens during the day from a breeder, and they said no way. There's no way they'll so could you just beg for
I have a similar thing though. They absolutely no animals in the building. I have to, and it's the nurses, it's a potential allergen issue with anything, which I've done the research. It doesn't matter. There's that whole, someone might be allergic to hay or might be allergic to something. So that's, I've had to be really creative and specifically say they're only coming in for this portion. They'll go out because my greenhouse is on the 3rd floor where my classroom is. And they go out to the greenhouse when I'm not teaching animal science. So it's until I get, what's that? Well, yeah. The other thing I did want to add is in the spring, we are going to have an FFA rabbit show. It's going to happen. So open to any chapters that want to participate as an event outside of a fair. It'd be a one-day deal. So.
Plus fairs and things like that. So there is going to be a lot of opportunities.
I do have a question for you. Are you guys allowed to go?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah. Go to every barn, find, tell them your situation, reach out to people, supporters, and see take filters up there.
Yes. Mine was a
I think they would, it's just they don't want the animals in the classroom. Outside would be fine, but like rabbits, not not bringing any dogs in. Huh? But if you have like piglets, you're not just gonna leave them outside all day. Start with the rabbitry that you can put outside. Like start with something that's outside and then gain your support there. Like if I went from, I have a class ag teacher as like top of second to the superintendent. And he's like, I cannot believe you have a farm. And now he's one of the people that calls me and is like, hey, look what your goat's doing. Hey, that's like once you got that program, it gains like.
And we've got about 5-6 minutes left before we get transferred.
I had one that I wanted to get in. I am one for a wish list. I feel like sometimes we get in ruts with vendors, and there's always a question that pops up in the spring, right? Like, we've got an extra $500 of Perkins money. We have this grant or whatever. And it's interesting to see the variance of the program. So, like, what's your top 3 things you would buy if you've got extra money given to you right now? Or what's, like, your favorite thing you've purchased for your program in the last 5 years?
I want to find one of those cows where you can practice and play themselves. Yeah, they're really expensive, but I want one really bad. Yeah.
Expensive or not expensive? I'm just curious. Like, besides your regular old dissection materials and everything you normally would do, like, what's the oddball stuff like that you've randomly purchased here and there, or a vendor that has been really helpful to you besides Wards and NASCO? Like, what's the stuff you guys really like that you're excited about to use?
Like a lot of things to get rid of, so like when they get a new bolus gun, right? They just kind of looking around, and then you can kind of show them magic tricks when you're showing them this or the ear tagger. Like sometimes in one class, I just call it like magic tricks. So I'll just have a little drill and I'll drill a hole in their notebook so they can use the ear tagger with like a real cow ear tag. It could be an old one. Sometimes they like the dirty looking one. Sometimes they can draw their name on it. They like the ear tag that, or like the bolus pill's good. What else? Oh. Ziploc baggie with 2 hex nuts in the bottom. And you use the bander there and you pull the screw. You learn all the words and you stop giggling about the nuts. So you can actually do like a lot of stuff. It's really cheap.
Yeah.
Finally, all of our shows, we had like ancient sheep stamp stuff, and I'm like, I need to use my animal science class up there with the sheep on the stand because somebody's gonna knock something out and it's just gonna be. So we finally this year, because we haven't been doing any labs because we were virtual, had some money. What do you want to say? Honestly, can we just upgrade all of that equipment that I have so I don't upgrade it? And I have it, so I don't really need it. But upgrading to the new like Premiere, and they have like a ramp for my sheep, and it's actually a little taller. And so that was really nice to get, and the sidebars so that the kids don't knock them.
And remember, ultimately, this connection is the best thing about ag teaching, because you can put something out on the listserv. You can be sitting down with somebody at dinner or driving to a workshop in the next few days, eating a marshmallow out by the fire, whatever it is, and just ask those questions, because we all struggle with stuff, and ask what you do, or say, hey, this is something cool I do. And gosh, I've been doing this 33 years and I just wrote down 5 brand new ideas that I never thought about before. And that volleyball and show stick thing, first FFA meeting of the year. You betcha. Awesome. Thank you so much, guys.
Owl Chats is next. Owl Chats. Do you need the link? Because I think it's open.
I have it.
Perfect. Okay. I would love that.
I uploaded my documents and this afternoon I'll put a list because besides Woody